Baie dankie vir my twee paneel mense wat by my aangesluit het. Vir die wat julle nie ken nie, van hulle wat nie ken nie, Stefan van Staden is daar van die Eastern Old Transvaal. He's in Mpumalanga. He's an area manager there for Afgri. I made a point to invite Stefan because he was a silo manager. I don't know whether he was good or bad at it, because after some time they give him a promotion to get him out of the silos. But thank you very much, Stefan, for attending and joining us. And then Mr. Hendrik van Aswegen. Ek dink as jy graan opberg in Suid-Afrika en jy doen dit langer as 6 weke en jy ken nie vir Hendrik nie, dan moet jy dalk saam met van daai goggas weer saam met die Pisans uitgaan. Hendrik, dis altyd 'n voorreg om jou by enige werkswinkel of enige gesprek te hê waar dit kom oor graan en insekte en ek wens baie keer ek in die boek sien waarin jou kennis eendag alles saamgevat kan word. Ek dink dit sal meer dikker as 'n Bybel wees of 'n paar geeks se inligting. So baie dankie dat jy bereid is om hierdie kennis van jou saam met ons te deel en oor 'n klomp goed waaroor ons gaan gesels. Ons het so 'n paar goedjies voorberei en ons gaan dan nou ook julle vrae van die vloer af hanteer om in die paneelbespreking te doen. Hendrik, ek dink ons kan dalk wegspring deur so 'n bietjie te kyk na fisiese oplossings. Ek hou van wat Dr. Du Plessis nou gesê het oor voorkom wat beter is as nasorg is. En toe sê van ons van daai foto's gewys, ek het nog nooit sulke graan gesien met goggas geëet en is natuurlik vir my eerste gewees. Maar ons het so 'n bietjie met Hendrik gesels gister toe ons geoefen het hiervoor, en Hendrik het baie goeie opmerkings gemaak oor stofluise en ek wil graag daar begin as dit reg is met jou, Hendrik.
Thank you for inviting me to this workshop. I'll continue in English, seeing that there's a few people that doesn't understand Afrikaans. Enige tyd wanneer daar 'n vraag is, as jy in Afrikaans wil vra, sal ek hom antwoord en dan sal hom vertaal en hom in Engels ook gee. Okay, the question was grain loss, dust loss, book loss. Where does it come from? What's its impact on the industry? If you look at it, it started in the museums hundreds of years ago. And that's where it developed. It ate up pages in books, caused millions of rands of damage in the museums. Most of you have taken up an old book and see part of the leaves was eaten out of that book, of the sheets. After the carbohydrates, since we started building silos in the late 70s, we used compressed woods in the expansion joints. And these lice move, grain lice, or book lice as I used to call them then, move over to the silos. At first they said, nah, don't worry about it. They're only feeding on the fungi that develops on the dust and is present in the grain silo. Yes, there was a question earlier, do they develop or do they adapt? Definitely. The grain lice, as we call it now, dust lice, has developed to a fully fledged grain insect. It's capable of damaging rice, wheat, and broken maize kernels and dust. So it's considered as a grain insect in itself. And the question was, what can be done about it? Or what is the influence of grain lice in our silo? Normally the lice develop at temperatures as low as 9 degrees. And in the hundreds of thousands of lice that's present, they started heating up the grain and increasing the moisture. You must remember relative humidity. When you heat the air is capable of conveying moisture. So when we get this concentration of insects, they develop a hotspot in the silo. And if I say a hotspot, I mean a small spot, but there's thousands of these insects in that small spot. And that becomes warmer and warmer until it's hot enough for Cryptolestes, sawtooth grain beetle to start to come in. So grain lice will always be your first sign that there is an infestation on its way or already there. As it becomes warmer, they move away to the outside. But like the doctor said, if you take the food away, that's the dust and the screenings that's in the bottom. You take the insects away. Years ago, when we started, there wasn't any 1.3%, 1.5% screenings, hardly any dust. These days, dust is a common appearance, and the screenings has gone up to 10% in our silos. And they concentrate in the bottom of the silo as well on top of the silos. But you'll never find them in the middle of the silo. That's not where the food storage is. So if that is one of your answers, John, if you need more information.
Yes, thank you. And linking to that, we have a question here that asks in a zinc silo, temperature fluctuates a lot between night and day and hot and cold. Would that make it more difficult for insects to survive in?
My
Because of
experience,
the temperature variation?
my experience is no. Our fumigated silos in -4 degrees, where the insects was running around as if nothing is happening, and of fumigated silos where the temperature was above 40 degrees. I mean, go to Priska or that silos that you've got in Limpopo and see what the temperature is in that silos. It's way above 40 degrees. And it's normally the first silos that's infected is at hot silos. So they definitely adapt to the temperature.
I hope this answers the question that we got on Menti. Stefan?
Yeah, no, so in conclusion, I mean, so the age-old question in the industry was also, is the sightening of dust lice, is it something to worry about? And what I can take from what you just said, it's definitely there. That means you either have an infestation already or it's coming, if I heard you correctly there.
It's always there. You'll find it in 100% of the silos that I visited. Had some dust lice in. But in the silos that's been cleaned properly, where hygiene is applied, 92% of pest control is hygiene. If you take away that food stuff, that's dust, you will lessen your problem, and it won't be so noticeable because these are very small insects. You're referring to an insect that does not grow bigger than 1.5 millimeter. So you have to look quite closely to notice whether the presence of them are there or not.
It's an age-old story. The smaller the insect, the bigger the trouble. So it's one of those insects that can normally cause a load or even a silo to get rejected. And I think that the one thing that's non-negotiable, especially in our line of work, Stefan, is we are responsible for the quantity and the quality of the product that we store, and we are the custodians for, and we have a responsibility. And I think what comes out of this is insects, and especially now dust lice, as you explained it, Indra, is an indicator that something's not right. Something went wrong, and we're going to get to fumigation and chemical possibilities to fight this. But hygiene and a good old broom is normally where things should start. And Stefan, I don't know whether you want to elaborate, especially on hygiene around the silo, not necessarily in the bin. That I know we had a chat the other day about birds that can bring in some stuff.
Yes, you want something that I just to go back to the hygiene part and what Dr. van Rensburg actually said. If you're referring to what we currently experiencing in the industry, is when she said prevention is always better. So that made me think for where we currently find ourselves in the industry, where we are busy preparing for a harvest that's going to come in. We actually have a good opportunity to prepare ourselves to prevent the insects better, in making sure our bins is properly, our empty bins is all properly fumigated and closed off and sealed off, and do proper inspections. I think that's something that stood out for me in our presentation, is the opportunity that we currently have. Die geleentheid wat ons het om al ons wyse en ons deeglik te ontsmet en voor te berei vir die komende oes with all the products that is currently available on the market from different suppliers to ensure your prevention is 100% up to scratch.
Ja, dis die 5 P's, nee, proper prevention, prevent, poor performance. So, ja, dis belangrik om die buis te vee voordat jy die insekdoders daar spuit en naderhand 'n mens sal van die helfte Jace vloot en diesel te gebruik om van die goeters ontslae te raak. So, Hendrik, one of the questions was, do we see a tendency of specific insects that get resistance to pesticides more than others, or are they all the same?
Johan, to answer your question, there's no resistance. But what's happening is all our silos is getting to a stage where sealing is virtually impossible. And the moment we haven't got proper sealing, fumigation doesn't help and we get survival. And the first thing that the people will tell you is resistance. We found out with the cryptolithic species that appear, if you apply your concentration very quickly at a high concentration and keep it there for a minimum of 3 days, you've got no survival of the flat grain beetle or rust-red grain beetle. But in most cases, it's virtually impossible to get that sealing to be put in place in your silo. So we're struggling with the problem. With the grain lice, the flat grain beetle, they say, yeah, they're immune to phosphine. They're not. The moment they smell it, they're so small, it's easy for them to move out of the fumigated area. And when it's fumigated, exposure time is expired, and they just move back into the grain that we just fumigated.
And very important there, Hendrik, and you just touched on it, is I think preventative maintenance, not you have to make sure that the bin is sealed correctly. But I know we always called it Stefan, those parts, especially at the zinc silo, the chappies that seal the I don't know what the chappies is Afrikaans and English for the same stuff, but you don't mustn't seal. Yeah, mustn't eat it, it's not good for you. To make sure that those things are in place and we close the bin, how solid is the roof? So many of our industry is there to make money, and it's always easier, or the first place people normally cut is maintenance, and that's the most dangerous part that anywhere can go to. So I hope that answers the question that we got on Menti with regards to resistance on insects, and so to take that back, Hendrik, there's no thing as a resistance. For some reason, the chemicals that we put down escape, and not enough of them gets to the insect, and the exposure is limited. I know some of these the insects, after some time you have to use a fly swat to get them killed, but that's because they are of those guys that get 3 years old. So a little bit back and to physical solutions. Stefan, maybe we can talk a bit about dust extraction, especially with farms or farm bins that has been put up. A lot of focus, it feels like, is being put on getting the grain from one point to the other. And guys use augers and chain conveyors and stuff like that. And although there's not a lot of dust visible, you actually contain the dust within the product. The last thing I'm yet to see dust extraction on a farm type silo to a level that the commercial silos do, and it's actually the same actions that we're taking there.
Yeah, no, you're right, Johan, but just if we look in-house, in our own silos that do have dust extraction in them, the question is, how frequently do we inspect our aspiration pipes? I mean, all those blockages inside that pipe, that is big infestation nests. If you have a blockage in a pipe from your aspiration, that pipe needs to be inspected frequently to ensure your the whole aspiration system is clean and can aspirate thoroughly.
Yes, and everything goes back to having some kind of plan and a rhythm to which you check that stuff. And this is a good question that we have here. How often do you have to clean the silos to prevent dust lice? So I think you touched on that, Stefan, by saying now's a good time. Every time the bin is empty, it's a good time to clean it.
Every time.
You must remember, in order to kill an insect, it must come in contact with either your contact insecticide or your fumigant. If either one of them is prevented, a dirty silo where the floor is not swept or where caking occurs along the silo walls, the contact insecticides won't reach beyond the first layer, and your insects will survive in that circumstances. So it's always better to clean it. But to come back to your dust extraction, how many people are aware how a dust extraction system should work? I myself was working for 10 years, and I thought you open a valve where you loading and put roots. Those years took me to a silo and he showed me and he says, Hendrik, this is how it should work. Your airspeed in all the pipes should be the same. Otherwise, the dust extraction doesn't work. So dust extraction is a science, if you want to put it that way. And very few people know how to apply that science. And they open only the valve on the extraction on the bottom, and the rest of the silo. When it reaches the bigger pipes, the airspeed is too low to convey the dust, and it settles on the pipe. So now it starts blocking the pipe. And the first thing that we are told to do is take a piece of wood and tap the pipe lightly to get the dust in the air. In silo terms, it means vat 'n yster en bliksem daai pyp. A duik in it. And unfortunately, the moment it's got a dent in it, you got a problem. You just increased your problem.
Yes, and that's exactly, and you can visit all kinds of silos. Those marks that you use, those light taps, it shows. Dit wys regtig. So ons het nog 'n vraag hierso wat te doen het met bankers en die beroking van bankers. Fumigation in bunkers is fumigation effective in bunkers, or do they only build up tolerance against pH 3? Bunkers cannot be sealed completely. So Hendrik, ek dink dit sluit aan by wat jy nou gesê het, om te sê, jy gaan 'n insek doodmaak met 'n chemiese middel as jy hom blootstelling gee, wat soos Dr. Du Plessis gesê het, ooreenkom met dit wat op die etiket staan. So,
dis korrek.
As jy 'n banker goed genoeg geseël kan kry en die dosis oor tyd reg kan kry, dan gaan jy dit met beroking reg kry. Stem jy saam, Hendrik?
Not necessarily. The problem is fumigating of a bunker is the same as fumigating a horizontal silo. You have to demarcate it by means of ropes, a meter apart over the length and over the breadth. And at each corner, you take a probe and push it right down to the bottom. Drop a tablet, pull it up a meter, drop a tablet. So that's a hell of a lot of work. And like you said, we can't get our bunkers to seal properly. There's always a convection currents that take our fumigant, and we lose the fumigant by that way. I will never fumigate a bunker, but I will spray a bunker and make sure that the spraying is applied correctly in order to get a long-term solution.
Thank you very much, Hendrik. I think that answers the question. Thank you guys for the questions that keep rolling on Menti. These are really good questions. And so the next question is, what is a better option to fumigate an empty silo? So I think that this is a little bit not as much information as I would like. So I presume we are talking here about a swing fork.
No, you don't use a swing fork in a silo. You're not allowed to. The Factory Act says no open flames. You can use it But then you need some tops to cover the top of the roof that's been blown away. If you get my meaning.
What are you talking about, Hendrik?
That is when you
It's
use
only
the
the roof that's going to blow away.
No, all it happened. But there is a procedure to fumigate an empty silo that's registered, and that comes back to sealing that silo firstly. It's been done. The maize board was present, the wheat board was present, Senwest, Northwest guys were present, and we distributed the gas, but we sealed it properly. And 1 kilogram of pellets or tablets, a bottle, spread evenly over the floor, seal it properly again, your inspection hatches and your inlet on top, and leave it for 29 days. But like I said, our bins is getting to that stage now where sealing it properly doesn't occur. So by sweeping it, spraying it. But what people forget is, I spray it now. The insects that's inside the kernel, it doesn't come in contact with the chemical. 5 days later, I have to repeat the spraying and the cleaning again. So it's not a once-off. It's not an easy solution. One solution fits all. You have to adapt to your silo and your circumstances.
And I think it's also, as Dr. Du Plessis pointed out, insect specific. You're going to attack moths in a different way that you're going to attack weevils, and to get rid of them. It almost sounds like the mafia, Stefan. So one of
that question that appeared on your own, does it apply to cone silos as well? If you haven't got a flat bottom, there's nothing preventing you from placing a few tablets in a sachet and hanging it with a string from the top. The distribution throughout your silo would be the same, whether it's from the top or the bottom. So yes, you can apply that to a cone silo as well.
Thank you very much for answering that question there, Hendrik. It's obvious that your knowledge is something we have to download you at some stage. I've gotten some private messages now here on WhatsApp on people commenting on your good. You look quite groomed today. You look good today.
Yeah, but don't believe everything you read. Eh?
I will not give out your number, because obviously these people can't see well. So coming back, there's some terms in the industry that gets called on loose, and we have to, I think, a bit of definition on that. The difference between dirty and clean fumigation, Hendrik.
Okay, dirty fumigation. I think you're talking about circulation at the moment, but even with the pellet dispenser, it doesn't matter. The moment I've got clean maize, the distribution of the gas is much easier, spreading throughout that bin. Remember, phosphine spreads a meter to a side and nothing more. But the moment I've got a lot of screenings, the core of my silo consists of screenings, then I get a better quality maize, and then I get the foreign matter on the sides. And that makes a huge difference in the distribution of the gas. It's especially on the side that you'll find the guy says, I screened the bin, it was clean. 10 trucks later, the truck is infested. Where does it come from? Caking on the sides, or dirty grain that's on the side where the... So it's definitely to your advantage to clean that grain and make sure it's clean before you start fumigating.
And I think you just touch on one of the very best kept secrets in the grain storage industry. Is after you fill bins, is to take out that core. Take 100 or whatever tons out of that bin, remove the core there where the fine stuff is and most of the impurities are, and you'll actually solve a whole bunch of stuff for yourself.
No, definitely. You remove the food, and you the spraying of gas is so much better. But the main problem is we use aeration now. Aeration fans creates tunnels throughout the grain. And when we start fumigating, we use a small fan. And where does the gas go? There's a path of least resistance. And that's through that channels. So what you said, just said, makes a lot of sense. if the guy is 3/4 through his bin, take out 60 tons and put it back in the bin. Thereby, you've created the core, you spread out the core, and you prevented channels forming by means of your aeration. Because we use aeration these days, taking in to keep it cooler for longer time so we can address the later stage. But the wetter grain attracts the insects by itself.
Yeah, one of the questions I always had is especially when you're spraying grain, but with the intake and you're receiving this grain wet, would you suggest spraying the grain if you have a drying facility on intake or only after you've dried it? What would you suggest?
Yeah, no, Johan, I would suggest you do it after the drying.
You're 100% correct, Stefan.
Yeah.
Because during the drying process, I break down my active ingredient. And so by drying it first and then spraying it, it's much more effective than spraying wet grain.
And I think that the secret there is what you said is during this drying process, a lot of wind, a lot of sometimes heat and stuff like that does not apply these within the parameters of what these chemical substances are supposed to do there or do happy with, and then you actually take away your effectiveness in that.
Sure.
And just a comment on what you said about the effectiveness. If you spray dirty grain, most of the active ingredients will be absorbed by the screenings as well as a foreign material in your grain. We found that out once years ago at Swaziland, where we shifted the spraying apparatus from the intake to the outloading belt, conveyor belt in the bottom of the tunnel. And 24 parts per million was measured on the screenings, whereas only 3 parts was measured on the grain. So you're losing a lot of chemicals to the screenings.
Yeah. One of the questions that I have here, and I don't know which of you two gentlemen will be able to answer this, is how much moisture does phosphine need to dissolve 100%?
I'll take that one, Stefan. I need 3 grams of water to release 1 gram of gas.
Okay.
So if I've got a dry product, and we found that out when fumigating malt. Malt is 3.5% moisture. There's not enough moisture to release the phosphine. Luckily enough for that guy, because he poured 22 tins on top of each other, there wasn't enough moisture. But if there was, he would have had fire occurring. But you need 3 grams of water to release 1 gram of gas.
One of the questions I have here also is, how would you seal a bin, and what does it cost? So the cost, I'm rather unsure with the depends how big the bin is, Stefan, and I think it will be determined by the type of bin that you have, and there I will most definitely get a specialist. I don't know whether you two gentlemen agree or differ, but it's not something like sealing those old steel water tanks that you got, sunlight tip, that green cake soap that you always took, and it's a different ball game. So I would leave that to a specialist. I hope that answers the question that I got here. Just want to make sure, please guys, there's the Menti code. Use that. For the guys who have my cell phone number, please stop sending me dirty jokes this time. I'm busy with the workshop. You can send them later on, and I'll forward them to you. So there's the Menti code. I think one of the subjects that came up when we planned this workshop, Stefan, we went to the industry and said, what's the hot topic at the moment? And without exception, everybody said hojas. So I think, or rather I know where most of the trouble is coming from. And I have had some incidents on that when loading out and the grain is tipped up and it gets to the off-taker and suddenly there's weevils.
Yes.
And one of the critical control points that I think people or everybody should really adhere to is, and Annalena touched on it, to say when you receive contaminated stock, don't take it. But when you receive a contaminated truck and even the tarps on it, I would not suggest loading that because it's going to be a comeback. Yeah. Stefan, I don't know whether you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, no, completely on. I mean, in all of our industry, the inspection of trucks makes part of our food safety, which we all do adhere to. So it's critical to ensure that the truck you load is not infested. And I mean, we all know the trucks that arrive at silos, at bunkers and sites, that the maize is already growing 5 centimeters high on the scarnels of the truck, and it's really in a filthy bad state. So yeah, every site manager got is fully empowered to reject that truck, not load it, and to send it back to the transporter to get it clean before he loads. And you've got a very valid point. You get a lot of arbitrations regarding that. The bin is clean, you go to the bin, you clean, you do surf tests on that, everything is clean, but the truck is infested. So that insects came from either the tops or the trailers itself.
Okay. Then, Hendrik, here's an interesting one for you. I think I know the answer, but coming back to silos not being able to seal as well as in the past, are you allowed to over-fumigate a little bit to compensate for the leaks? Hendrik?
Yes, I mean, it's common practice to do that. If you don't do it, you won't get the necessary parts per million needed for that insect to die, because you need to reach a CT value. So if you know your silo is leaking, overcompensate and increase your dosage. I don't mean triple or 5 times the dosage. I had a guy the other day that was fumigating at 85 pellets per ton. It's a bit high. If you get what I get, we normally say 1.7 is 11 pellets per ton. So if you go to 2.5 on a leaking silo, you're covering your beds. And a truck that's sent back, and it will cost a lot of money to the storage agent. So you can't afford to offload or load a truck that's infested. And prevent that transporter from going out when you reject his truck to your gate and emptying it in front of your gate, because you're reinfesting your whole area around it. So make sure that he's clean before he comes to your place. Clean and dry.
Yes, and coming back to the over-fumigating a little bit, I think it's about the parts per million. Get the insects the exposure that they need to kill them.
Yeah, definitely. You need 110 grams CT value, and that you'll achieve with 1.7 grams of gas in 5 days. But if you've got a leaky silo, go up to 2.5, and you'll achieve your CT value. 2.5 is still going to give you around about 3,000 parts per million. And the combustion figure is 17,800 ppm. So you're way below that, and you're safe. And you know, you don't have to refumigate again.
Goed, so nog 'n vraagie is hier, wat is die beste manier om 'n opbergingsarea mee skoon te maak, met besems of met 'n stofsuier?
Okay. Vacuum cleaners don't last long in a silo due to the amount of dust and grain that's sucked up by the vacuum cleaner. Vacuum cleaning is the best because you remove the fine particles that's needed for dust lice to breeding. But unfortunately, it's very expensive and it doesn't last. So your broom, cleaning, washing your silo is still the best way to do it.
Thank you.
The most practical way.
Thank you very much for that, Hendrik. Just want to check here.
Excuse you, Johan.
Yes, Johan.
Just something while we're on the cleanliness of the silo, something that also I thought about when Dr. Vreesberg was speaking is about our humans labeling the insects pest. I mean, so the insects were always there. We named them pest because they became a problem for us. So that made me thought about the importance of keeping your site clean, basic, om te skoffel en om die seilyn skoon te hou because they live there, they live in the plants, they used to live there for thousands of years. That's where they live, it's their natural habitat. So if you keep a filthy site, you will have problems. It's not only inside the bins and inside the grains, all the other part of good hygiene. That's a big part of good hygiene on your site.
En dit sluit eintlik baie mooi aan, Stefan, by waar Dr. Du Plessis begin het, is wat is die omstandighede wat vir hierdie insek lekker is?
Ja.
So as jy dit nie lekker maak by die spur nie, dan gaan niemand daar eet nie. Dan gaan eet hulle op 'n ander plek. En jy maak 'n baie geldige punt. Hierdie aarde, ek dink insekte is almal so rapsie langer as ons hier. Dis nou anders as daai wie vertel daai storie van insekte en die diere wat so teen mekaar rugby speel het. Wat se naam, dis 'n bietjie anders daar. Ek net gou seker maak hier of ons nog 'n vraagie of twee het. Dan kan ons begin afbeweeg. Ek dink ons kan maar so stadig aan begin met slotopmerkings daarvan jou kant af, Hendrik.
Die groot probleem is higiëne. Higiëne, daar's 'n persepsie by ons mense by die silo en dit kom van bestuur af dat higiëne nie so belangrik is nie. Ons het gesny op arbeid. Ons het nie meer die arbeid nie, dis een van ons grootste verskonings. Ons kan nie meer skoonmaak nie, niemand worry daaroor nie. Ons gaan in elk geval brook of as hy afgekeer word, steek ek mense uit en hulle gaan brook om by die meule. Maar jou verbruiker aan die ander kant het baie meer sensitief geraak oor insekte. Hy wil nie meer insekte hê nie en hy wil ook nie eens hê jy moet die produk op sy perseel brook nie. Jy moet hom nou wegstuur, aflaai en laat berook. So dit kos jou geld.
Hier het 'n vraag hierso, enige voorstelle of wenke vir effektiewe bestryding op ketting en beldlediger buise?
That's a question nobody will be able to answer because that's one of the most difficult places to have access to and to clean. You can't seal it properly to spray it. You can't get in there to spray it. And it's one of the sources of infestation of most of those silos. That's your source of infestation. So cleaning beforehand, making sure that everything that goes in is clean, and applying hygiene in your tunnels is very important.
Dankie Hendrik. Stefan, daar van jou kant af.
Yes, Johan, so Hendrik already mentioned the hygiene part, so another part for me to take out of this day is the prevention part, especially where we find ourselves currently in the industry. The most of us with the summer crop is sitting with quite some low stock levels, which give us a great opportunity to prepare ourselves good for this coming harvest that's coming in, to do the best prevention we can do, whether it's with bin preparations, our equipment, is our pill dispensers good and functioning order, all the stuff that we have access to as site managers and site personnel to ensure that we can do the fumigation as good and as proper as possible. All the bin lids on top, are they all properly sealing? Do we ensure every bin that's being fumigated gets closed off and sealed off at night after we stop the day's receipts? All that stuff, all the stuff that's in our power to ensure we prepare ourselves properly to prevent begogas.
Okay. So hier het 'n great vraag nou gekom van John Christie wat sê wanneer buise 3 uitlaai kegels of spene aan die onderkant het en broking deur die middelste kegels sit word, is insekte teen die kantste kegels geneig om te bly lewe oor die kanale waar die gas deur die graan vlieg waarvan jy nou nog gepraat het, Hendrik. Kan 'n mens die broking met een broking afwissel tussen die kegels sonder dat dit gevaarlik raak? En dat effektief is, kan 'n mens met een waier 3 pype na die verskillende kegels lê en berook sonder dat dit gevaarlik is.
Okay, to answer your question, to go through the 3 reclaim hatches it's problematic. You have to fumigate all of them, but do the main fumigation through your main hatch, your middle reclaim valve. Due to the fact that the distribution of gas from the middle of your silo to the side is 7.62 meters. However, from the side, one of the side, the other 3 wells, from there to the other side is 9.1 meters. So you don't get proper distribution in your silo if you go through all 3 of them. Because the moment you use one fan, It creates a resistance. It will follow the path of the least resistance, which is your side wells, and you get lesser gas distributions to your middle. And therefore, you get areas where there's no gas, areas where there's high concentrations of gas, and you get survival of your insect. And then they say, okay, there's resistance. It's not that. It's a system and how we use it. And exactly what Stefan said now. We've got the systems, we must use it right.
What do they mean by the CT factor? What's that?
CT factor is concentration over time. The doctor referred to that as well. You need a certain concentration, that's 110 grams per cubic meter over 5 days for an insect to kill all the developing stages of that insect. That's the egg and the pupa stage. You kill the adult insect very quickly with very little gas, but in immature stages, metabolism is slowed down, they don't breathe in enough phosphine, and therefore they survive it. So to obtain your CT value, it's imperative that you test for gas, test the gas reading, test for gas leaks throughout your whole circulation system. And then you can say, I'm successful or not.
Linked to that, Hendrik, is 3 days enough with magnesium phosphide to kill all stages of an insect?
No, that's a stupid recommendation. If you read the label on the tin, it's a legal document. It says 5 days. The people who tell you that, I think they work for you at some stage, because that's something that they suck out of their thumb. 5 days is your minimum time.
I'm asking on behalf of a friend, Hendrik. Jason,
that's one of the questions that makes me furious, is when the guy tells you, if you use my product, you can reduce the time. The time, exposure time, is for the CT factor. Nothing else. It's not the release of gas. Magnesium phosphine releases gas in 16 hours. With aluminum phosphide, I get 36 hours, but I still need that 5 days exposure.
Exposure time. Jason, het hoë pH3 dosis 'n effek op die ontkiemingskapasiteit op gas? Jason wil lyk my seker maak sy bier raak nie suur nie.
Okay, as far as I know, no, because they use quite a high concentration on the malting or the barley before the malting process, and it doesn't seem to affect it. But there's people that say it might. I know Delaray down at Caledon Malting, he said definitely that he thinks there is. That trials hasn't been done. So I'm not going to say it will or it won't.
Thank you. Then we have here some insects, some of the insects fly. Cleaning with brooms, will it not spread the insect to other areas?
No, the insect is not like a grasshopper when you put a broom near it that it flies away. The insects normally walks. They will fly during nighttime. That's when they're active. And that's when you should do the treatment, the ULV, the aerosol, environment spraying. That's when you should do your treatment. But cleaning won't make them distribute faster than normal. In actual fact, it will help you to prevent insect infestation.
Thank you very much, Hendrik. I don't know, Slamjohan, is there more questions there on Menti? Please, guys, you can go ahead with the questions. Even after we finished, email us our questions. We will have the answers ready. So the questions on the millikalender, die temperatuur is wat dodelik is vir millikalanders is redelik hoog. So, ek weet nie, is dit dan 'n somergewas of Hendrik?
Nee, wat as jy gaan vat 'n Prieskan daai plekke. Hy gaan 50 grade. En ons kry nog steeds dat die milliekalander leef en die reiskalander. So dit is nie die ou terminologie was gewees, ja, as op hierdie 38 kom, vrek hy. Maar insekte het hulle aangepas by die koue omstandighede sowel as die warm omstandighede en hulle oorleef dit.
Ek sien Annalena sê vir ons hier, Hulle begin ongemaklik raak tussen 46 en 52 grade. So ek dink die persoon wat graag daai kalander teelplaas wil begin, jy kan hulle maar goed isoleer en sorg dat daar sonpanele op is en hulle lekker warm maak.
Of so nie, gaan jy na sekere maatskappy toe wat 'n chiller het. Hulle sê daai chiller, as jy hom opsit, dan groei die kalanders eers.
Hendrik. Baie dankie Hendrik, dit was soos altyd baie interessant geweest om met jou te gesels. Dankie dat jy jou hare so mooi gekam het en ons so baie komplimente daaroor gekry het. Ou Stefan, jy's huister. Dankie dat jy hierdie tipe werkswinkel sommer maklik maak. Ek waardeer dit baie hoor.